to the Vault Report. I'm here with Davidson head coach Matt McKillop. How you doing? We're less than a week away. Are you ready?
I'm doing really well. Thanks, Nathan. Thanks for having me. And less than a week away, I think we have three practices left before our first game, which is our opener on Monday. So it's gone by fast. However, training all summer and preseason, it feels like we've been doing this for quite some time. So we're ready to knock heads against somebody other than ourselves.
Absolutely. And year two, sorry, for you at the helm. Has there been anything different at all? Just having this second off season. Again, I know you've been involved in the Davidson program for I don't even know how long, for a long time, but still being the head coach is different. Just this second off season, anything different about it?
Yeah, definitely some different things from how I can do my job better, from an understanding of the players we have, from an understanding of what I need to be doing as a head coach. I mean, yes, there are many things that are different. I feel significantly more comfortable in many ways because I've seen some things that I know work, and I've seen some things that I don't do anymore because they didn't work. It was really meaningful to me. One of our seniors, after one of our opening meetings, said, "You were really good this year," and he said in the talk with our team, and I was like, "Well, was I really bad last year?" He's like, "No, but this year you just felt like you'd done it before." And he meant it in the most genuine way. I put so much time into always delivering the right message when I felt that needed to be delivered last year, and sometimes it was more, it was less, it was more what was on paper, and which was coming from my heart as I put it on paper.
Yep.
But now I feel comfortable enough to just speak from off my mind and off my heart when I speak with our team and communicate with our team, which ultimately leads to how we help develop our team on the court. I think our players that we have are guys that are completely bought into me. And I don't mean to say that last year that was not the case, but last year there was guys who, all of a sudden in June, there's a different head coach in the program. And while I did have relationships and trust with those that I coached as an assistant or recruited as an assistant, I think now we're to the point that the level of trust allows for them to be coached the way that they want to be coached, and allows me to coach them the way that I want to coach them. So many different things feel different, are different, and I think that's why we're going to see some great success as a result of it this year.
Definitely. And I want to start with, I'm not going to go through the whole roster at all, but I do want to start with just a couple guys. You look at Grant. You last year had a pretty young team. You have a pretty young team this year. Grant obviously is the guy who has that leadership, can provide that. What for you this offseason has impressed you most about what is going to come next, the next part of his development?
Well, I'll say what we've really challenged him with is Foster Loyer was such a great leader. He always had command of a huddle, had command of an end of game situation. As we were going through some scouting work, he commanded everybody's attention with how well he paid attention to it and communicated with it. And not that Grant needs to be Foster, but commanding the game was going to be something that he was going to be relied upon to do in a bit of a different way. So to get better at that, to earn the respect of his teammates and the trust of his coaches to do that, we've tried to help him find himself in situations where that's demanded of him. And we've also been holding him to a very high level of accountability to do those things. Like you mentioned, we have a very young team. I would think if you asked our players who our coaching staff and myself is the hardest on, it's Grant. Now, it's partly because Grant is very willing to accept that type of constructive criticism. He actually came up to my office one day after an early practice and was like, "Hey, you're really hard on me in that one moment, but then at the end you sugarcoat it with a compliment. Like, stop doing that. These guys are going to get better if they hear you coaching me the way that you try to in that moment." He is a relentless and fearless defender, and we asked a lot of him last year to push the ball and basically play on the ball for most of the game. Foster, we moved him off the ball to provide better scoring for us. We struggled to score many times. So now we're asking Grant to do the same thing as an offensive player, but thankfully I'm appreciative that he received an acknowledgement as a preseason all-defensive team player, first Davidson player to ever make the preseason all-Atlantic 10 defensive team. He has the reputation of being that type of competitor on the defensive end. I think finally we have a group around him that is all bought into that defensive intensity. So I'm not necessarily answering your question, but I'm sharing a lot of the things that we've worked with him on, and he's demonstrating every day in practice. Not to get into too many details, but I want to with close scrimmages. I think he was our leading scorer in each of our close scrimmages, and he wasn't just doing it at the rim like Benny saw last year. He's shooting the ball well from three, but he also knows we've got enough talent and shooting ability that he doesn't need to force shots, and he needs to shoot when he's ready and capable and open to shoot it, and be consistently doing that well. And he's been doing that great for us in these 5.5 weeks of practice.
Oh, it's awesome. And you look at the people, you said the pieces around him, he's knowing the pieces around him. You look at guys like Connor, David, specifically Connor, someone who, has a year under his belt now in the Davidson system, still an upperclassman. What for you do you think has been his biggest adjustment, and maybe last year, but going into this year, and what he's going to be able to provide for you guys on a consistent basis?
Uh, Connor has been relentless in everything. And we almost joke with him, like he tries so much to be the leader that we want him to be, that sometimes he's talking so much that, hold on, just say what you need to say. And the same goes, we do like the GPS system, where you track your movement, and he every single day, like the distance he covers in practice is significantly further than everybody else, and we're like, hey, just do you need to move the most, or do you need to move with efficiency? And that is an awesome problem to have from somebody like Connor. I mean, he wants that much, and he works that hard, and he tries to do that much. He does, and we've had many players like this in the past, but I would say on this roster, he acknowledges and takes advantage of what the values that the coaches want our team to have on a daily basis, offensively, defensively, intangibly. He sees those values and tries to be the best at those values in a way that no one else does. Guys want to be the best shooter. Guys want to be the best defender. Connor wants to be the best at the little things. And that is why he has really helped this young group get better, because he has set that example. He was, I think he'd be the first to tell you, he wasn't consistent shooting the ball. I mean, he had a stretch where he didn't make threes, and then he goes to UMass and he makes 7. And I think he was 7 for 9, and we probably could have got him like 3 or 4 more good looks in that game. Knowing that he is doing so much that's earning trust in his coaches and teammates by doing all those little things is giving him the confidence to offensively be as efficient as he's been in summer and preseason workouts.
And I mentioned early on, you obviously talking about the youth of your team. You looking at a guy like Reed. He's a guy, and I think it maybe was a previous article or almanac, a guy you had mentioned about kind of taking a huge jump this offseason. Being able to have the experience he had as a freshman going into the sophomore campaign, what do you guys need out of him? And how valuable was that time, again, as a freshman going in? Usually sophomores in college basketball, especially the transfer portal, you're like, you don't know what you're going to get from him. He had that experience early on.
Yeah. And we, knowing that last year we were going to play young players, and we needed them to get better as quickly as possible, to develop as quickly as possible. And I do absolutely believe that Reed was ready to start as a freshman, but we knew that was going to come with growing pains. But we knew there was going to be some tough, great days, as we saw from him when he was freshman of the week a couple times, and he had great performances. And but we knew that he was going to be a freshman at times, and that's allowed him to grow. That's allowed him to have the experiences that he can now understand and see and have that perspective. But it also allowed him to take the right steps in the offseason. And then I wouldn't say there's 1 or 2 things that he's really improved on specifically. Like, he's gotten a little bit better at everything. What I would say is part of it being a freshman, part of it being we like to think of our 4 and our 5 as just big men. We don't have like a specific actions for 4s and 5s. They're pretty interchangeable. But I will say that at times in our offense, the 4 is so reliant upon everybody playing through our 5-man. So as a freshman, Reed was constantly trying to figure out where to be and where to go. And Sam Menenga, who had a great season for us, he knew how to play as a 5-man, almost to the point that he played a little bit too much with around the ball that really didn't allow Reed to benefit, but it also didn't allow Reed to develop in our system and an understanding of our system the way that he now has. So now we're asking him to be at times that 4 who knows what to do, but also play with the ball in his hands like Sam Menenga did at times last year. So his overall understanding of how to operate in our offense is what we've seen the biggest jump from, which has allowed him to be very effective.
And, I mentioned, sometimes the lack of youth that gets experienced the last couple of years with the transfers. Obviously, that's a huge part of the game. And you brought in 2, very impactful transfers, Brizzy and Moss. And again, if I ever say any names wrong, I say this with everyone. As a previous teacher, I'm like, correct me on the spot. But, just bringing them in, two guys that looks like they will have an immediate impact. Talk about their fit and you getting them here, to Davidson, how important that was.
Yeah, and what's interesting is Jarvis is really talented, and he was right down the road. But we had a veteran team, or we were returning players when we were going through the recruiting process with Jarvis on the front end that were perimeter shooters, and we just didn't feel like we needed a guy like that. We had Young Jun Lee, and we had Mike Jones, and we didn't think that was the best fit for us in that class. But now we've got him back here after 2 years of college experience, and maybe his production and the minutes that he received was not what he'd hoped for, but he still competed every single day against Pac-12 players. You could say the same thing for Angelo. Now, the one thing different with Angelo is Angelo enrolled last January. He transferred mid-year. So he spent 6 months, second semester last year, going up against Foster Loyer and going up against Grant Huffman and competing with them daily, but also getting a sense for what the opponents he was going to be playing against this year in the Atlantic 10 looked like. They have experience. It's interesting, though. You have freshmen who come in and they got a clean slate and they build all these habits. You have I guess, Angelo, a sophomore, Jarvis, a junior. You have two transfers who they built habits, and some of them are exactly what we want. I think Jarvis has some incredible defensive habits that he picked up at Stanford. I think Angelo has some great offensive habits at Villanova in terms of penetrating, getting to 2 feet, and making great decisions with the basketball. But there's a lot of habits that they built in those systems that don't quite fit into what we're doing. So unlike freshmen, they got to kind of break those down before they build it up. So it's been unique from a coaching standpoint, seeing how we can help guys and develop them and teach them. But they're really talented and they can make an impact. And I'm not sure what questions you may have about our other newcomers and freshmen, but what I will say is we really didn't shoot the ball very well last year. We shot 31.9% from three. That was the worst Davidson shooting team since 2020. The second worst Davidson shooting team, I think, shot 33.7%. So that's a drastic difference between the first and the second worst Davidson shooting teams over the last almost 25 years. Angelo can really shoot the basketball, as can Jarvis. And we have 4 very talented freshmen. One's a 5-man who can make shots, but the other newcomers can really shoot the basketball, like really shoot the basketball. So that the experience that Jarvis and Angelo bring, the development of Reed and our other sophomores, and then you mentioned Grant and Connor, and you briefly mentioned David as experience coming back. I do think we have the pieces in place to be an efficient offensive team in a way that we're pretty excited about.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear. Great insight.
And I'm sorry if you were going to ask something about that, but I just kind of ran with the transfer question.
No, that's great insight too. Because I do think even transfers, no matter how big they are, that is a different challenge. Sometimes maybe it doesn't go, it isn't spoken of in terms of you look at freshmen in terms of what they got to do. You have transfers coming in, they might be able to do something, but like you said, sometimes they need to do something different in your program. So I appreciate that feedback. And then kind of just last couple of questions. You briefly talked about freshmen. I feel like you look at your roster, the depth that you guys have, and you have a freshman class coming in. They often say, the best thing about freshmen is, they're going to become sophomores. But
yeah,
you look at this class and what kind of impact do you think they can make early on at Davidson?
They're going to play, and we're going to have some young lineups on the court, but they are really tough and they're really smart. 2 of them went to prep school. Mike Locknane, he's from Boston. His father's a 40-year veteran coach in high school basketball in Boston. Bobby Durkin went. Mike went to Phillips Exeter, so he did a post-grad year. So he's a year older. So he's not like every other freshman maybe. Bobby Durkin from Chicago is the same thing. He went to IMG Academy, and then we have another freshman who he's from New Zealand. His name is Hunter Adam, and he enrolled in January last year early because of the school system. Aussies and New Zealanders often will enroll early. They graduate high school in November and then they can start in January. So in many ways, they don't feel like freshmen because they graduated from high school 2 years ago. Hunter has been with us. And then the last freshman is Rikus Schulte, and he was a late signee. And he played with Alba Berlin, which is a very good club in Germany. And he's got experience playing like senior level pro basketball. So we're not talking about kids from, right down the road who were playing for a 2A state championship last year. We're talking about guys that have much more experience than your typical high school graduate. And you always think you know what you get when you're recruiting, but when they show up on campus, that's when you really figure it out. And I don't think we expected these four guys to be as tough as they are and as smart as they are. I mean, the way that they've picked up what some may consider to be a complex offense has been pretty remarkable. And that's the one worry we have in this transfer portal era is like if we're going to always be a young team and we're a program that has traditionally been one that's been based on juniors and seniors being being the best and some minutes filled in by some freshmen here and there because those junior and seniors developed from following the upperclassmen and getting more familiar with our system. Well, we got guys that are pretty darn familiar with it and we haven't even tipped off yet. I think it's gonna show this year. They can all shoot the basketball. They're all really smart and they're all really tough.
That's awesome. Well, listen, coach, I appreciate the time. I know it's busy. I know too, you're getting to that point where you're going to be on the road. So hopefully you can enjoy some extra family time before the grind begins.
We've got one. I thought about it because my daughter has a soccer game tomorrow and I get to go to it. And I'm thinking, wow, this is the last off day until it's here, Yeah. So it's great that I get tomorrow to think, and I've thought about what I'm going to do tomorrow with my family. It's also really exciting that we're getting rolling.
No, that's great. And I look forward to it. I look forward to kind of, touching base throughout the season as well, but appreciate it always. And we'll be in touch.
Well, thanks, Nathan. Always great to talk to you.